I picked up this bottle at the airport duty-free shop last fall when we were coming back from our Speyside distillery tour in Scotland, and I've been dying to crack it open and taste it, so let's do this. Welcome to Whisky Riffs. If this is your first time here, I appreciate you stopping by and watching my videos. My name is Kevin, and I will be your whiskey tour guide for this episode. Today, I have a bottle that is from Glenmorangie. It's from their Heritage Spirit batch. It's called the Tribute, and it's 16 years old, aged in ex-bourbon casks. This is a 43% ABV whiskey that has some chill filtration because of the low ABV, but it has natural color. And I paid $97 for this 1 liter bottle at the London Heathrow Airport duty-free shop. Now, in addition to being aged in ex-bourbon casks, it's also blended with their core spirits. Now, I'm excited about this bottle for a couple of reasons. One is, that's not a bad price to pay for a 1 liter bottle. I like getting a bigger bottle, especially if it turns out to be a really good dram. I don't know yet, I haven't tried it, but we'll get to that in just a second. Travel editions can be hit or miss. Sometimes distilleries will put a travel edition in the whiskey shops, in the airports, or other travel locations because it's a way of experimenting with a new whiskey expression that may or may not be part of their core range, or they may be thinking it'll go in their core range if it sells well, but they don't want to start a wider distribution of it yet. So sometimes you find hidden gems in these travel editions. Other times, they're kind of just dumping whiskey that isn't selling and they need to get rid of it somehow. And I guess weary travelers might not know what's a good whiskey and bad, and they might just grab a bottle that's in that duty-free, tax-free shop. Now, I'm hoping that this one is the former. I'm hoping it's a hidden gem that they're trying out in the various travel editions. I've read in a couple spots that this is becoming more mainstream. I still haven't seen it in the US, so I am glad that I grabbed this bottle at London Heathrow. Now, they call it the Tribute because it's a celebration of the lightly peated past of Glenmorangie. Unlike US distilleries and other places around the world, a common fuel source in Scotland was peat. It was abundant. It's basically earth that has been compacted over the years, and when you dry it out, you can burn it. And it was used for fuel and for cooking and other things in Scotland. And a lot of the distilleries have moved away from it in the Highlands area and the more mainstream spots, where other spots like Islay and the other islands may have embraced it even more and said, well, we're going for that full-on peated flavor. It's part of our signature now. This is interesting to me because I like peated whiskey, but I'm not used to a Glenmorangie being a peated whiskey. So the combination of their softer flavors and their more lighter notes combined with a little bit of peat might make it a really great dram, and I'm looking forward to it. The Glenmorangie distillery is located on the western coast of Scotland, just outside of Tasing, which is north of Inverness and most of the Speyside distilleries down in that area. Of course, another signature of Glenmorangie is their stills, which they attribute to their wonderful flavors of their whiskeys because they have necks as tall as giraffes, or necks that are as tall as, they have still necks that are as tall as giraffe necks. The necks are long. They have really tall necks in their distillery. What happens with a taller still is it's harder for the spirits to get up and over the bend, and whenever you make it harder for something to move, it's going to separate more. So some of the heavier notes are going to stay down and not make it into the next part of the process, and the lighter notes are going to make it through. Lighter notes mean softer whiskeys usually. So that's kind of a signature for Glenmorangie and makes sense because their whiskeys are softer to me. All right, I am ready to crack into this because I'm dying to know just how peated this slightly peated or lightly peated expression from them is. And yes, there is a little bit of a peat hint there. Kind of a smokiness and a grassy note. Mossy, vegetal, a little bit of spice on that. and a little bit of citrus, kind of an orange zest to me. I really like that nose, but if you don't catch it right away, you might miss that peat smoke. It's not in your face. It's not Isla peat smoke. I'm also getting a little bit of a candy sweetness to it, and definitely the oak and the maltiness. Overall, kind of unique for Glenmorangie. And that first taste is definitely more intense than most of the other expressions I've had from them. There's more spice, there's more heat to it. For a 43% ABV whiskey, it is really attacking my mouth, and there's a really long finish to it, so that's kind of impressive. I wasn't expecting that so much from this whiskey. Maybe the age is giving it a little more of a depth to it. After taking a taste, the nose gets more grassy and a little bit more of that tannin note for me. It's an interesting swirl of spice and sweetness. It's like you don't get much of the sweetness until the spice takes over. And for me, it's a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of pepper, and a lot of wood spice that is just clinging to my mouth. And it does taste like a more oily whiskey. It is coating my mouth and my throat, and I can really feel that heat. It's just following my taste all the way down. Trying to see if I can get more fruit notes out of it. Okay, well, there was more vanilla, kind of a grapefruit note. It's just a little bit of bitterness. It's a little bit of bitterness, which I'm not a huge grapefruit fan, but I think all the other flavors are mixing in nicely. So you get this sweetness. It's not quite a candied sweetness, and I don't want to say it's like a frosting or cake topping. A less sweet vanilla dessert. And I'm not getting a lot of that fruit on the nose, but there is some on the taste. Very light fruits though. Maybe like a pear or something that just has a subtle sweetness to it. Maybe even some very light raspberries. Nothing heavy, and the spice is pretty intense, so that's really setting the stage for this dram of whiskey. What I'd like to do is take a quick look at how it compares to one of the other expressions, and I happen to have a bottle here. I've got several bottles from Glenmorangie. This one is the Nectar D'Or, and I've done a review of this recently. I'll put a link down below to it. This is definitely one of their softer whiskeys. It's a Sauternes cast finish, and I picked this one to compare against because it doesn't have a heavier finish like a port cask. Yeah, the Nectar D'Or is much sweeter on the nose. Definitely get more flowery, fruity notes. And there's almost no burn or spiciness from the Nectar D'Or. It's much more subtle. And of course, with the Sauternes casks, you're going to get that kind of that dessert wine type of sweetness to it. A lot of the fruits are grape-like or more in that line. Where the 16 is probably going to be one of those whiskeys that is more of interest to somebody that likes a bit of a challenge with their whiskey. If you're going to Glenmorangie and you're saying, I really like their softness and their easiness, this is not going to be one of their expressions you're going to fall in love with maybe. But if you like spicier whiskeys, then this is kind of an interesting mix of the two. I don't know if I love it yet, and I don't know if it is worth doing anything with water, so I'm just going to put a couple drops in to see if it affects it in any way at all. And I'll throw a couple in here just so there's a similar comparison between the two. It turned off the spice a little bit and gave me more of the pear notes, and actually did open up some of the sweeter notes. And the question comes at the end of this review, would I recommend it? Well, first I want to ask you a question. Would you recommend it? Have you had the tribute? Have you had their 16-year travel edition expression? If you have, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I'd love to know if you have tried it and if you will continue to try it if you can get your hands on it. As far as me, right now it's not one of my favorite Glenmorangie expressions. I think it's good because it's a fascinating test of what lightly peated means in a Highland whiskey like this, where they are not so focused on the sweeter aspects or the softer aspects. I guess if you find a good price on it, you know, maybe it's worth trying. It certainly is a nice size bottle for the $97 that I paid. I don't know. I think it was worth it. I'm going to spend some more time with it. The problem is that it doesn't quite fit a mold. Yeah, it's Highland and it's Speyside and it's sweet and lovely, or it's a rough ride of the Isle of Whiskies where I really want to get that peat and smoke flavor. So I'm kind of on the fence with it right now, and I don't know where I land. But it's not boring, and I think that's important. And with a little bit of water, I think it made it more interesting. I think maybe the grapefruit notes are sticking with me, and that's not my favorite fruit. If you like grapefruit notes, well, this may be an ideal Glenmorangie for you. So let me know about that in the comments too. And until our next video, take care of yourself. Take care of those people around you. And cheers. To my channel, my name's Kevin, and I will be your whiskey tour guide for this tour guide. It is their heritage. Today I have a yes, I can talk. Today I have a 16-year-old whiskey from Glenmorangie. It's from their heritage spirit batch. It's from their heritage. I can't talk today. I'm just gonna shut the camera off and just walk away. It's obviously too tough for me to talk.